Hello. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Is it audible to everyone? Can you please confirm once? Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, let's start. Yeah, this is the session for people who are already aware of basic of JavaScript. So once you are aware of JavaScript, then we are going to explore more details about functions in JavaScript. So this workshop will be about JavaScript functions, and prerequisite for this is a basic idea of HTML and JavaScript is enough. You can manage. So our intention is to give a detailed clarity on functions, how they work in JavaScript, because majority of interviews that you attend are related to web designing and all. So lot of questions will be around the concept of functions. So having a good idea on functions will help you in handling interviews also. So step by step, what is JavaScript function, purpose, how they are used, we will see today. So our idea is to explore and learn detail every point about functions in JavaScript. So what we are going to do, if you have any doubts at the end of session, we can take the doubts. So we are going to start understanding about JavaScript functions. So here, to handle this concept, step by step, I will explore and give you detailed information. From basics, we will see everything. So actually, I hope you already have a complete idea of JavaScript basic. So I don't need to set up any environment and all. You already know your editor like Visual Studio Code. I hope you all people are doing web designing already and you have an awareness of how to create a project and how do we set up HTML and JavaScript environment. I hope everyone is idea, right? Yeah. So what we will do is let's open Visual Studio Code and I will open a new folder by name JavaScript I created for you. It's an empty one. And here I will keep all my logic and I will share with you. So first important, we are going to understand step by step. The first important concept is what is what is a function and what is the purpose of a function. So in JavaScript, what is a function and what is the purpose of a function? This is the first basic thing you need to understand. Actually, in technical terms, a function is used for refactoring the code. So how you answer this is function is used to refactor the code. It is used for refactoring the code. So function is for refactoring the code. What is refactoring? What is the concept of refactor? Let's try to understand. So for example, I'm creating a new HTML page here. So it is some demo HTML. And here just I will add a script to show you the function concept. So I'm having some set of statements like for I starts with 1, I less than 10, and I plus plus. I return a simple logic. So console log, and I want to print the value of I. You can use any output statement, console log, document, write. So we can use any statement. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of this block is to print numbers from 1 to 10. So I return some statements just to print the numbers from 1 to 10. I want to reuse this block and handle from various locations. So we want to reuse this block. Generally, to reuse this block again and again from various locations, what we need to do here is we can select these lines. In your Visual Studio Code, you can select these lines, right click on those lines, and you will find an option called refactor. So you will see there is an refactor option. And when I select this refactor, it is going to show me options like surround with a function or catch statements and all. And I'm selecting surround with a function. And automatically you can see that it is going to create a function, and the function name I given some print numbers like this. So now what is a function doing? A function is refactoring the code. So what is meant by refactoring? Refactoring is the process of extracting a set of statements, enclosing in a block so that we can reuse the block without rewriting the block. That is the main purpose of function. So I can access from anywhere and I can use from anywhere. So what is the concept of a function? Why you need a function? Generally, function is used for refactor. And what is refactoring? Refactoring, refactoring is the process of extracting a set of statements, a set of statements, and enclosing in a block, so that you can reuse without rewriting. That is the major concept here. So it is the process of extracting a set of statements and enclosing in a block so that you can reuse without rewriting. So whenever you want, you can access and you can use it without rewriting it. So that is the main technical term about the function. So what is the purpose of a function? Here we are using for refactoring. I hope everyone understood this. Is it clear? So I hope the first one is clear to everyone. Yes. So everyone understood what is refactor, right? Yeah, good. So refactoring allows us to reuse the code without rewriting. We can reuse the code. That is the first basic thing. Okay. Next, after understanding what is a function, what is its purpose in JavaScript, let's see how to configure a function. Configuring function. Actually, there are two different ways of configuring a function in JavaScript. So you can configure a function using declaration, and you can configure a function using expression. We have two techniques. We have declaration and we have expression. Let's see what is difference between these two. So what is declaration and what is expression? So a function can be configured in two ways. One declaration, another one is expression. Let's see what is declaration and what is expression. What is difference between these two? Actually, I will give a simple syntax here. Declaration contains function keyword. It will contain a function keyword with a function name. And optionally, you can have parameters. You can have parameters into it. And this is the block. So we will detailedly discuss about this structure also, but this is called declaration. We call this as function declaration. This is declaration. Now we have another technique, that is expression. We have an expression technique also. What is this expression? So expression is nothing but you are configuring a name, and into that name you are defining a function, and you are configuring the functionality. This is called expression. So we in JavaScript we can define functions in two ways. We have declaration and expression. Now the question is, what is difference between declaration and expression? So what is the concept here? So declaration, expression, where to use them according to the requirements and where they exactly fit. Let's try to understand this. Actually, what is declaration here is, declaration comprises of a function with a name, and this function name, so a memory allocated by that name, in that the functionality is configured. So a function memory is allocated and some functionality is configured. Okay, what is happening in second case? In second case, you are creating a variable called name. In that variable memory, you are storing a function. You are generally storing a function. Generally in interviews, what they ask is, what is difference between these two? When to use declaration and when to use expression? Actually, sometimes people have different answers about this, and technically also, what majority of people have an answer about this is, generally people say that this declaration is used for hoisting function. Declaration allows to hoist the function. I hope you learned what is hoisting in JavaScript. When you learned about variables, you know hoisting option. That means many times what people tell about this declaration is that you can hoist a function. Hoisting means what? Let's see here. Actually, what is the point of hoisting is, you are having a function. So, and you are defining the function name. Suppose print is a function and it is having some message. Suppose you have welcome, that is the message, and you are accessing the function and using the function above. That means we are accessing and using the function above. Actual, according to the order, generally a function is first declared, after that it is accessed. But what you are doing, you are trying to access before it is declared. So now what is the specialty of JavaScript here is, the main concept of JavaScript here is, what JavaScript can do. Usually JavaScript allows to access the function related definition. So here, you can access it here. That means before the function is defined, you can access the function. Its definition is defined. The definition of function is accessible above. That means you don't need to maintain the order. You can declare anywhere, you can access and use anywhere. This mechanism, usually we call it as what? Hoisting. This mechanism is called hoisting. So you can configure and access from any location. That is the point about declaration. This is one concept actually. Now, what expression people say about expression is, so expression cannot be hoisted. But actually that depends on, means usually you will see this as an answer that declaration can be hoisted and expression cannot be hoisted. That is what you will find. But that's not true every time. Why? Because you see, now I am configuring an expression here. So how do you are configuring the expression? We are having an LET. So print is equal to function. And in this, we have defined a functionality. So say welcome. And now I am trying to access this function expression above print, and I am trying to access above. And usually when I run this, you can see that when I run this, so here it is showing some issues. So that means it is not printing anything. It is not returning anything. So actually we will go to here. Right. Let's go to the browser and run this here now. Yeah. I will go to my browser and I will access here. Okay. Now you can see that. Let's check in the console. In the console, you have a problem. You can see cannot access print before initialization. That means it is saying that you cannot access print before initialization. So here, what is the point? You can use different keywords. What is that keyword? One is what? Const. You can use another one is var. And observe carefully when I use var, and you can see that here it is saying that print is not a function. That means actually what it is saying, it is not a function. I'm using var, then it says print is not a function, but we configured as a function because it is unable to find the definition of this function anywhere above. It is trying to access below. So you try to use LET. So you can see now you have another issue, cannot access before initialization, because LET constant will not allow hoisting. I hope you people learned this in JavaScript. It will not allow hoisting. Actually, var allows hoisting. Var allows hoisting. Var allows hoisting of variable. But here it is not allowing the hoisting of, it is not allowing hoisting of a function. And observe carefully, when I access this print, after this and you define, and I'm trying to print that, it will print that and it will show. So what is the difference between a function declaration and a function expression? Function expression will not allow to hoist. That means you have to declare and after that you have to use whatever keywords you may be using. Actually, var allows hoisting of variable when it is having some data. But if it is having a function, it will not allow to hoist that. So declaration will allow to hoist. What is the point about declaration is you can declare and you can access and use from any location. That means there is no order for declaring and accessing. So declaration allows to hoist variable, and expression will not allow to hoist the variable functions actually. So let's take the point here. What is the point? Declaration allows to hoist. Declaration allows to hoist a function. So expression will not allow to hoist, will not allow to hoist. This is important. And of course, in general definitions, what people say is, people say that you cannot assign any new functionalities, but that is not true. Why? Because if you have declared with const, then you cannot assign a new functionality. But if you declared with let or var, you can assign a new functionality into that. So that is not a correct point every time. What is the correct point about difference between declaration and expression is declaration allows to hoist. So you can declare and you can access from anywhere. You can declare at any location and access its definition from any location, from any another location. So this you can do. So expression will not allow to hoist. So you have to access only after declaration. So that is what you need to do. This is the difference between the function expression and function declaration. So generally, if you want to access a function and reuse anywhere, then better you use a declaration. So where we use the expressions, usually expressions are used in callback mechanisms. So they are used in promises. So technically, when you are accessing a function within a function, you are using in a closure, you are accessing in callbacks, then better you use an expression. You have to use expression. So it is mostly used in callbacks. We can use in callback. So it is used in promises. So it is used in different locations. So you want to access and reuse a function from anywhere. So that means irrespective of declaration and accessibility order, then always use the declaration for that. So otherwise you can configure it as an expression. This is the basic difference of function, declaration, and expression. So you can configure a function of JavaScript in two ways. We have declaration and expression. I hope everyone is clear about it. Is it clear to everyone? Is it clear to everyone? And what is difference between var, let, constant? That is not the session. You should know in basic JavaScript. Huh? Because if you learn basic JavaScript, you will learn difference between var, let, and const. This is not the session to explain about variables. Here we will stick to the functions concept. Okay. And var, let, constant, you already learned in basics of JavaScript. You already know everybody, right? Yeah. Is it clear? 2 points. What is a function? And what is difference between function definition and function expression? Right. Good. Okay. Let's see another point now. That means you understood two concepts. So function and how it is configured and where we have to use an expression and a declaration. Okay. Next important you need to know is about function architecture. So you need to understand function architecture. That means how generally a function is designed, what it comprises of. You need to understand functions architecture. Let's see what is function architecture. Actually, to understand function architecture, I will give a small diagram here for you to understand it. For example, we are configuring a function. So we are defining a function. So usually we have a function and function will have a name and optional parameters it will have. Yeah. So I'm just configuring this. And actually, this is a simple function we have. Generally, what is the basic architecture of function? So when you write any function in this, so this part, that means the declaration, this you can see this part, the function keyword, function name, and function parameters. We call this as, generally we call that as, we call this as declaration. We call this as declaration. We call as declaration. So let me keep this here. So actually, this is called declaration. So the function name, the function keyword, and the parameters. The function name, function keyword, and parameters. This generally we call as declaration. We call it as declaration. This is the declaration part of a function. So usually function have a declaration. Okay. And this part is usually the function name, parameters, whatever it is having. This is called as, we generally call it as signature. Signature. So this is function declaration, and this is the function signature. Usually a function is accessed and used from any location by using its signature. This is the function signature, and this is the function declaration. And what functionality it performs? Actually, the functionality performed is this block. That is the functionality it performs. This is called as, we generally call this as definition. Definition. So function have three basic elements in its structure. So we have function declaration, function signature, and function definition. Declaration defines how the function is accessible. How the function is accessible, where it is accessible, the behavior can be configured using declaration. Function can be accessed and used anywhere by using the signature. Suppose if I want to access the function and use in different location, then I need the signature. I need the signature. That means according to the signature, we need to access the function and use the function. This is called function signature. Generally, anywhere we access the function by using its signature. With the help of signature, we actually access the function and use the function. And what functionality a function performs, that is called definition. Definition indicates the functionality performed by the function. So what actions it can do? The block comprises of all the actions that a function can do. So then we call it as what? Definition. This is usually the basic architecture of a function. So every function architecture comprises of, it comprises of three basic elements. One is the declaration, another is the expression, and definition. So function comprises of three elements. Declaration defines scope and behavior, and signature is used to access the function, and definition defines the functionality. What functionality that the function performs, that is called definition. So every function comprises of these three basic things. We have a declaration, we have a signature, and we have definition. Whenever you write function, these parts are important to understand. I hope this is clear to everyone. Is it clear? So I hope this is clear, right? Yeah, yeah, good. So we understood about what is a function and how the functions are configured, what is difference between declaration expression, and what is the basic architecture of a function, how the function is defined, the basic architecture of function. Okay. Next, after understanding the architecture of function, I will share all these notes at the end of the session in a Yep. Sorry, we just lost a connection for a while. So uh, let me connect again. Right. Okay. So is it audible to you? Is it clear? Yeah. Is it clear? Yeah. Fine. Let's see. Let's check that. So here we understood about the function parameters. So we will see about the function parameters. So we detailedly learned about the function, configuring the functions, what is declaration and expression, and function architecture. Now function parameters. Let's see what are these function parameters and how do we handle them. Actually, what is the concept of function parameters? Let's see what is the concept of function parameters. Why a function needs parameters? Actually, parameter parameter is used to modify a function. It is used to modify a function. Generally, function can be parameterless and can be parameterized. Why we need parameters for a function? Generally, the purpose of function, generally the purpose of a function is to perform certain functionality. Usually what happens, a parameterless function is going to perform same functionality every time. We want a function to modify its functionality, then the parameters are important. For example, let me give you one concept. Generally, if anyone asks what is the purpose of a parameter, so we should say that it is used for modifying a function. I will show you the concept here. For example, what we are doing is we are writing a function print numbers. And what this function is going to do is print numbers I, 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, and we will start with 1 and we will print document right and the value of I with a break. Okay. And we call this print numbers. Then you can see that it is going to print the numbers. It is going to print the numbers from 1 to 10. So it is going to print the numbers from 1 to 10. And whenever I access print numbers, it is going to print again 1 to 10. But I want this function in such a way that I can modify the functionality. In one situation, it should print 4. In another situation, it should print 10. In another situation, it should print 100. We must able to modify the function. If I want to modify the function, how this function can be modified? We can pass the parameter. Like what? We can define how many. That is a parameter. And now for will not use 10, it will use how many. That means how many you want to print, you have to tell. So in the first case, I want to print 5. Then you can see it is going to print 5. In the second case, I want to print 15. Then you can see it is going to print 15. So you can modify the functionality by using parameters. So what is the purpose of function with parameter? Usually, what is the main purpose of function parameter is parameter is used to modify a function. Generally, so parameterless. So function can be parameterless, parameterless or parameterized. Parameterized. What parameterless function will do? Parameterless function performs the same functionality. So functionality every time. It will perform the same functionality every time. What parameter can do is parameter can modify the functionality. Can modify the functionality. That is the basic process actually, the basic point. We have parameterless and we have parameterized. Generally, parameters are used to modify a function. You can change the function. Now, so you can see this is one basic example. I will share this note as I told you. I will share this note with you. So at the end of the session, I can share this with you. So this is the parameterized function. And when you are dealing with parameters, what is the purpose of parameter is actually to modify functionality. And when you are working with parameters, you need to understand two basic things. Actually, you have a function parameter. Okay, let's use this one. So I will copy this. I will copy and I will show you a simple architecture here. So let's see the basic architecture here. So what is the concept here is in this we have a function and all. Yeah. Okay. So when you define a function with the parameters, so this is print numbers. It is a function and it is going to print the functionality. Okay. And usually the for is going to loop. So that means it is going to perform the functionality. That means how many you want, you can define them. How many you want, you can do. So this is just nothing but we are accessing and printing. Now in this, what you need to understand is usually in this, what you need to understand, whatever parameters are passed, generally whatever the parameters are passed in the declaration, the parameters that are passed in the declaration, these are known as, we call them as formal parameters. We call them formal parameters. And the parameters that you define, the parameters that you define. Hmm. The parameters that are defined. So the parameters that are defined while calling the function, that means you see the values that we pass while calling the function, actually these are called as, usually this is formal parameter. How many is a formal parameter? And these are called as what? Actual parameters. We call this as actual parameters. Formal parameter and actual parameter. Usually what happens is, whatever the value you configured as actual parameter, this formal parameter value is equal to actual parameter. That means what will happen? The actual value will be stored in the formal. So that is the concept. So here what will happen? I hope you got a clarity that now what is going to happen? Our formal parameter name is what? How many? How many is the formal parameter? And into that, the actual value is 5. In one case, it is 5. In another case, it is 15. That's what we are going to modify here. That means it is going to modify, the formal value. So when the formal value is modified, the functionality is also modified. So what is the purpose of parameters? The purpose of parameter is to modify a function. So that function will be same, but in different instances, it will be returning different. It will be responding to different actions that we can manage by using parameters. So if you want any functionality everywhere in the same way, you can define a function with parameter less. If you want to control the functionality and modify the functionality, then you have to use parameters. So we have parameterless and we have parameterized. We have two types of concepts: function parameterless and function parameterized. So parameters are used for modifying the function. So let me copy this syntax for you. This is to modify the function. This is the syntax here to understand. We have formal and we have actual. This is a basic point about parameter. So first important point is about parameter. Is it clear to everyone? Understood? We have so many things about parameters. We will discuss about that. Is it clear? Right. That's correct. Good. So technically, what is now we will discuss more detail into the parameter. So I will tell you about the parameter. So usually what is the term formal parameter and actual parameter? That is the technical term. That means now compiler, how it understands. Suppose what you have done is, whenever you are accessing print numbers. So whenever you are accessing print numbers and you are not passing any value, here it is expecting a value and you are not passing any value for the parameter. If you are not passing any value for the parameter, then usually what compiler understands that you are missing an argument, because the function is expecting one argument. That means compiler understands these parameters, how many parameters you configured, how many values are being passed. Compiler understands this by counting the number of parameters and handling the number of parameters usually. So technically, compiler will treat them as arguments. Compiler treats them as arguments, but what they are not just arguments, they are parameters. How compiler recognizes whether the parameter relative value is passed or not? By checking as arguments. How many arguments are defined in signature and how many arguments user is passing? It will verify. So how many arguments are defined and how many arguments are passed? These are important things. So how compiler understands the parameters? Compiler understands the parameters as number of arguments as arguments. So a parameter is an argument. So how many arguments you define, those number of arguments are to be passed. So technically there are arguments, but developer reference are parameters, not just only arguments. I hope everyone understood, right? I hope everyone understood. So parameter and argument concept is, the parameter argument concept is, developer will store a value under the reference of a parameter. For compiler, it will verify whether the number of arguments are matching or not, so that it can show you an issue if the count is not matching. So the arguments and parameters, but the point is, in the declaration, whatever you define, that is formal, and while calling whatever you pass, they are called as actual. That means now the actual value will be stored in the formal. So compiler identifies the parameters as arguments. Compiler identifies the parameters as arguments. That means every argument defined in signature is mandatory. It is mandatory. That means how many arguments you have defined, the same number of values you need to pass. So this is technically about the function related parameters. Now another question is that while working with parameters, another point is, what type of values you can pass in a parameter? Actually, parameter is a reference name. Parameter is a reference name. Parameter is a reference name. Which parameter is a reference name? Formal. Formal parameter is a reference name for memory. It is a reference name for memory. So what you can do? So you can store any type of value. You can store any type of value. Parameter is a reference name for memory. So you can store any type of value. So if anyone asks like what kind of data we can store in a parameter, what is the parameter type? Because you already know JavaScript is not a strongly typed language. Actually, if you are using Java, .NET or other programming languages, generally you know these parameters have data type like integer, string, boolean, so or array. We configure the type. But JavaScript is not a strongly typed language, you know that. So in JavaScript, that formal parameter is just a reference name of memory. In that reference, you can store any kind of data. That means what kind of data can be passed into a parameter of function? You can pass any type of value. That means you can pass a primitive type, you can pass a non-primitive type, or you can even pass a function. That means a function parameter can be any primitive, non-primitive, or function. You can store anything. For example, in this case, what is the parameter type in this print numbers? What is the parameter type? Tell me, what is the parameter type in this? What is the parameter type in the print numbers here in this case? So what is the parameter type? The parameter type is a number. It is a primitive type. It's a number. JavaScript, right? It is a number type because 5, 15, these are the numbers we are passing. So it is a primitive type in this case. But a parameter can handle any type. It can be primitive, it can be non-primitive. That means it can be a number, string, boolean, it can be an array, object, it can be date. So you can have any type, and even it can be a function. A parameter can be a function type also. For example, I will show here is C. Let's see. I am configuring, this is okay, this is a number. I am configuring a function print, and this function is having success. And what it has to do is, for example, we have a password. We will take a password using a prompt. Suppose we say enter password. And what should happen here is when password is matching with our required content. Suppose password is matching with admin. Then I want this success to execute a function. That means in the success memory, we are expecting a function. And generally, how you can access the function? We can access the function by using a simple parenthesis. Actually, generally in JavaScript, we call this as usually what we do, we have a function in the memory. Later, detailedly, I will explain another concept about that. When you are accessing a function which is stored in the memory, that means in this memory, we are expecting a function. And what we are doing is we are accessing and using that function here. We are accessing and using this function. And this is an anonymous function. That means it doesn't have any name. And you are invoking the function immediately after the memory name. And I hope you people learned in JavaScript, this mechanism is called as IIFE. This is called as immediately invoking function expression. We call this as IIFE, immediately invoking function expression. So a function parameter can handle any type of data. It can be primitive, it can be non-primitive, or it can be even a function. So if a function is expecting a function as parameter inside, then the parent function, which is handling a function as parameter, this is called as higher order function. We call these functions as higher order function. So what is an higher order function? We have more about higher order function we will discuss, but this print is an higher order function. When you call print as an higher order function, when it is expecting a parameter to handle a function. If a function parameter is handling a function, then we call this as higher order functions. Higher order function. We also have another technique of this we will discuss in the next levels. We will understand about that. So what is the function parameter type? It can be any type. It can be primitive, it can be non-primitive, or it can be even a function. If a function is able to handle another function as a parameter, then we call higher order. So how you pass this, I will show you now. That means how we are going to handle this, I will show. See, actually what happens here now, if it is not matching with the password, then we will put an alert saying that some invalid password. So how do you call this now? We will access print, and into the print, it is expecting a function. So this function will present some message, some document dot write. So it says that login success. That is the functionality we are defining. defining. So now what is the concept here is, so this function stored under the reference of success. And if password is matching, then the success function will execute. That means in the success memory, there is a function, and this function is going to execute when the password is matching. So a print function is accepting a function as parameter and handling functionality. So this print is an higher order function. We call these as higher order functions. So technically, a function can have another function as parameter. You see now, when we run this, what it is going to do. So when we run this, so it is asking, so enter the password, some password is wrong, then it shows invalid password. You entered again the password, so admin, it is matching, then it will execute the function and it will access it. That is login success. So a function can have any type of parameter. It can be primitive, it can be non-primitive, or it can be a function. And very important is, if a function is accepting another function as parameter, then it is known as higher order. But there is more about higher order function. We will discuss that. So then it is called as higher order function. So when you are configuring the functions, you should know that the function have an higher order function. So you can have any type of parameter. You can configure any type of parameter. So function can have function as parameter. I hope everyone is clear, understood what can be the parameter type. Is it clear? That means the parameter type can be anything. You can have, so number, you can have string, you can have any type of parameter. A function also can be a parameter. Okay, right, good. So now next important point is, so as I already told you, every parameter, so in a function is required. Every parameter in a function is required. So you can have multiple parameters. You can have multiple parameters. But what is the point? Every parameter in a function is required. So you can have multiple parameters. Let me keep this first. And every parameter is required. Every parameter is required. So you cannot ignore any parameter. It is mandatory to define any parameter. So that means every parameter is mandatory. You cannot skip. And important is, parameters have order dependency. Parameters have order dependency. Usually parameters must be accessed and used in the same order how they are defined. You cannot skip them. So you can have multiple parameters. You can have multiple parameters. Every parameter is so required parameter. For example, let's see this point. So I will copy this for your reference sake as an example that a function can have a function. Okay. Yeah. Now every parameter can be defined with default also. Let's see. For example, I'm having a function details. You can have multiple parameters. You can have multiple parameters. Suppose one parameter ID, another parameter name, another parameter price. You can have multiple parameters like this. If anybody asks you like how many parameters we can have in a function, that means like this, how many parameters we can have in a function. So any idea? How many parameters we can have in a function? Any idea is that about that? So how many parameters can we have in a function? Yeah, actually here one more important point is that it depends on the browser JavaScript engine according to ECMA. According to ECMA, there is no limit actually. According to ECMA, there is no standard limit. Standard limit is not there, but browser engines cannot handle any number of parameters because they have a limited memory. That is the reason what is possible is some browsers allow 1024 parameters, and maximum limit can be 65,535. That is the maximum limit of parameters, because maximum bit size of memory in browser can be 16 bit. It can be up to 16-bit memory. That means every browser have its own browser engine. For every browser engine, it will be changing actually. Situation wise, every browser engine is changing. According to the browser engine, the memory size will be changing. Technically, 16-bit is the maximum number. 16-bit is the maximum number. So that means you cannot have more than 16-bit indexed memory for any browser. So that is the reason you can say that it can be maximum 65,535. Yes. So it is actually equal to the port numbers, or actually that is 16-bit size. Huh? That is 16-bit size. But 1024 parameters are allowed in certain browsers. Maximum largest is 16-bit, that is 65,535. But according to ECMA standards, JavaScript don't have any such fixed limit. The limit will vary according to the device, say according to the browser actually. So you can say, if anyone say maximum how much, any browser in the world can maximum handle 16 bit. That is 65, 535 parameters. So how many parameters you can have? These number of parameters. There is no standard limit, but you should know that. And important is every parameter is required, and every parameter have order dependency. Every parameter is required, and every parameter have order dependency. What does it means? For example, what we are doing here, let's say I am storing, I am trying to print this here. So document dot write, I am printing ID. Okay, let's access ID. I am printing name. Let's access the name, and price. Let's access the price. So we are trying to print all these details. Okay. Now what we are doing is while calling the function details, into that I am passing ID. I don't have a name, and I am passing some price. Now, usually what happens here is you passed only two parameters, but what will happen now? The first parameter is stored in first reference, second parameter is in second reference. That means the parameters have order. In the same order they will store. Because JavaScript is not a strongly typed language, what happens is a formal parameter can store anything. It can accept anything. Now tell me, what is the value of price? So one is ID. So 56,000 is name. Then what will be price? There is no value for price. Then tell me what will be the price when I print price? Right? Good. So price will be undefined, because in JavaScript, if value is not defined, then by default it is treated as undefined. If value is not defined, then it will use as undefined, right? So this is mandatory. Every parameter is mandatory. Otherwise it will return undefined. Good. So it returns undefined. Observe carefully here now. When I run this, it is going to show, yeah. When I run this, you see it is going to show price as undefined. Okay, now we have one more concept here. So you can configure default parameters. Default parameters. Default parameter. Actually, in interviews, this is also a question. So what is default parameter? Default parameter is nothing but, so default parameter, actually default parameter refers to a formal parameter with default value. Default value. Default parameter means it refers to a formal parameter with default value. What is the point about this is, if any value is not defined, any value is not defined, then the default value is used. Default value is used. That is the point. But this will take care only when it is undefined. Undefined. So what we have to do here, usually, suppose there is no value for price. So you see name, you can see name is ignored here. We are not using name. So what I will do here, for name, I can put a default value equal to, I can put some default value for name. This is called default parameter. That means if a formal parameter is expecting and having a default value, then it is default. But observe carefully now. Is it going to print that? If I refresh, you see it is not printing. Why it is not printing? Because according to the compiler, I already told you how many arguments details is expecting 3. So you have to pass exactly same number of arguments. That means you need to pass 3. But for second argument, we don't have a value as of now. Later we will have that value. Then what we will do is, for the second argument, you will define undefined. When you put undefined for any argument, automatically the default will be taken. Default will be taken. That means you can see it will use the default when it is undefined. Now you can see that name is using default value. Default value is TV. That means when the default value is used, when the value is undefined. When the value is undefined, then it will use default. You see, if I put here an empty string, what will happen? That it will not take the default value because empty string will be replaced there. So default value will be taken. Default value will be taken when you define undefined. When you put undefined, it will take default value. And remember, sometimes people have an habit of null. Generally, null is used. Generally, when null is used, you can see it is showing null only. Why? Because what is the meaning of null? You already learned in JavaScript, like null is what? Null is a value that returns when a value is expected dynamically. When dynamically value is expected and you are not passing the value, then obviously it will return null. So will it use default parameter when it is null? No, default parameter is used only when it is undefined. Only when it is undefined. When it is undefined, then only it will use the default parameter. So null is not for undefined. Why? Because null indicates that the value is expected at runtime, not at the compile time, right? So what is default parameter? For example, you are having price default is 4,400 I given, and you can see it is taking the value. Suppose if I mentioned price, if I mentioned price 0, if I mentioned price 0, now tell me what can happen now. What will be the value of price? I added 0 for price. What will be the value of price? Value of price. You can see that when I put 0, it will take 0 as value. Because what it is going to do, it is going to replace this 400 with 0. It will remain 0. That's important. And if I mentioned as undefined, now what it is going to be? If I mentioned undefined, then what it is going to be? It is going to be 400. That means it is displaying 400. If I don't mention price, what it is going to be? Tell me. If I don't have an argument passed for price, what will be now? If I don't have a argument passed, by default it is undefined. By default, if it is undefined, it will take default parameter, na? Am I right? Right? By default, if it is undefined, by default it is undefined, because you saw that if a value is, if a argument is not passed, then automatically it will take undefined. Undefined means it will take 400. That means you put some value here and automatically it is going to take the default value and use the default value, right? So when you configure, so any parameter, so you need to define the default parameters. So this is the concept of default parameters. So how you can configure default parameters. So this is an example of parameter. So technically, you already know that there are no optional parameters. Huh? In JavaScript, you don't have any optional parameters. Okay. So you don't have any optional, and parameters have a clear order dependency. Everything is in perfect order. If you miss anything, then automatically you cannot give like this. You cannot give like this. You have to use a value for that argument. That means it is undefined. And if it is undefined, then obviously it will take the default. If you replace with any, then automatically it will take that. So you replace with any, and it is going to use it. So it is going to replace the TV with that. And if it is undefined, then it will take. So what is the important point is default default parameter is used only when the argument is undefined. I hope you everyone is clear about it. Understood the point? Is it clear to everyone? Right. So if default is not there, then it will put as undefined. So this is about the parameters. So how we can configure the parameters and use the parameters. So technically, so about parameters, there are so many concepts. About parameters, we have so many concepts. We need to understand so many concepts. So parameters have REST parameters, spread approach parameters. How do we configure optional ones and all? We have more about parameters. So that we are going to discuss in our next session. This is enough for today's session. Today we discussed about all the concepts up to parameters. We have more about functions. It's a very big concept. We will divide into multiple sessions. We will take at least 2-3 sessions to finish all this functions concept. I hope you are interested in this, and we will continue in the next session. Is it clear to everyone? Today we discussed up to only few points. Now I will share a, yeah, and our next session, this time we will continue today, and tomorrow is holiday. Tomorrow we don't have any session. So we will continue this workshop for 2 days in the same timing. Thursday and Friday also we will have the same. Okay. Is it clear? Yeah. Thursday and Friday also we will continue. The same functions concept is a big concept. We will discuss all. And whatever the notes is there, already our admin have shared a classroom link. Our admin has shared a link. Everyone got that link? A WhatsApp community link is there. A WhatsApp community link is there. So I will share a WhatsApp community link. You join that community, there we will share you the classroom notes. This notes, everything I will share there. Yeah. the community here. Yeah, you can join. This is the WhatsApp community we have. That's the WhatsApp community we are having. This is the WhatsApp community link. You can join this WhatsApp community link. So you can scan this and join in the WhatsApp community. Our admin had shared the WhatsApp community. You can please check. And we will post this on YouTube also. Video we will post on YouTube also. You can check that. Okay. We will post this on YouTube. You can check that. I hope everyone is clear, and we will continue this, and we will continue this on next session will be on 28th. Okay. On 28th. Yeah, we will take all the doubts. If you have any issues, we will discuss everything at the last session. When we finish all the function concept, I will take all the doubts and I will explain anything if you are having any issues you are having. Okay, right. Thank you everyone for attending this, and tomorrow no session. Again, we will continue same time on Thursday. Okay. Thank you very much. Same link for 2 days. We will continue, right? Thank you very much. You please join this community. We will post everything here. Huh? Right. Thank you.